Yellow Nanami has just released on global, and honestly, in my opinion, he's a bit of a beast, and he's going to work really well with hidden inventory Gojo, who is coming up. So for those of you who were lucky enough to pull him, today we're going to be going over a build guide for this character and what skills you want to upgrade first, what teams you want to run him on, what recollections you want to run, and then of course what materials you need to farm to be able to get him all the way to board 10, which is as high as global goes currently. So the Yellow Nanami is an attacker type unit, and he is going to be a black flash machine. So whenever he performs a black flash, he increases his own black flash rate by I think 200% is what I saw when I tested him out in the showcase on global. It's actually insane. And then when the selected enemy has a weakness to yellow type, it also increases his own damage. He's also going to be able to hit a lot of crits. He does both melee and taijutsu and jujutsu damage, which is really good on pretty much every single skill, and he's able to decrease the selected enemy's critical hit resist and increase their damage received with his skill 3. And then he also has the auto skill of where at the start of battle he recovers his own cursed energy by 30, and then every turn he recovers 5 more cursed energy. He also fills his own ultimate skill gauge by 220. He also increases his own jujutsu damage by 30%, and then when attacking an enemy with a type advantage attack, he fills his own ultimate skill gauge by 110. He can do that once per turn, which is absolutely freaking insane. So this character is very, very good, to say the least. So what teams should you be putting him on? So currently on global, this top team is going to be one of the better teams that you can run him on, and it's going to be the Red Yaga, Kaido, and Nanami. The reason you want to run specifically rare Kaido here is because this Kaido is going to be able to give cursed energy back to both Yaga and Nanami, allowing Nanami specifically to pop off with his skill 3 over and over and over again. Really, if you're using this Nanami right, you should very rarely be using his skill 2 or his skill 1, because he's giving himself cursed energy at the start of battle so he can skill 3 right away. He's also giving himself cursed energy back, and then if you have Kaido giving him cursed energy, he'll just be able to spam that skill 3, and that skill 3 once again is going to lower the enemy's crit resist and increase their damage received. So whatever attacker you have placed behind Nanami is going to be able to pop off. Additionally, Grand Exorcism I do think is one of the best recollections you can run on him right now on global. It's either that or Adult Time. I'll explain more why down below. The future for Nanami looks sort of like this. So some of these characters are not out yet. The soonest one we're probably going to get is the Teen Gojo, who will be coming out later this month, probably between the 20th and the 31st. We don't have an exact time frame confirmed, but we do have confirmed from one of the mods in the Discord that the hidden inventory characters are coming later this month, so that is definitely something to look forward to. So very soon Nanami is going to have his best friend Gojo to help him out. Okay, so this is a team you want to maybe start planning for the future. A lot of these recollections you can get already in the game, so keep that in mind. Maybe if you don't have these recollections built up yet, you might want to start building them up. Now, the best possible recollections for Nanami are going to be listed here below, and this time I have gone through and translated them all myself. So it's not translated through Google Translate from JP. So hopefully this is a little bit of a cleaner format for you guys and hopefully easier to understand. Feel free to pause the video at any point to go back and check out what these recollections do. So the number one that I recommend is probably Grand Exorcism. So what this one does is it increases taijutsu and jujutsu damage by 30% for 3 turns. 3 turns being the key, because no other recollection does it for that many turns. I think that in and of itself makes this recollection really good, but then it gets even better when you look at the second effect of this recollection. If you have it limit broken, increases damage dealt by 20%, scaling depending on how many Tokyo High students you have on your team. The more Tokyo High students you have in your team, the more damage dealt you're going to be able to do. So you're getting 30% boost to both his taijutsu and juju. Yeah, it's a mouthful. You're getting a 30% boost to both his taijutsu and jujutsu damage. And once again, just to remind you guys, if you look at all his skills, all of his skills have both types of damage. So even though it's a 30% boost, it's a 30% boost to each of those individually, so it's more like a 60% boost for 3 turns plus an extra 20%. Like, that allows him to do really good damage. So that recollection is very, very good, right? And then Adult Time is the other one that I would probably recommend. So this one increases just flat out damage dealt by 70%. That is for 1 turn, I believe, if I remember right. I should have put the turn count on here. When crit is landed, it also increases allies crit rate by 10% for 2 turns. This guy is going to be a crit / black flash machine. 10, meaning this recollection is insanely good for giving allies crit rate up, and that's going to be helpful for like when you have Gojo or Nobara behind him. They're going to have a higher chance to crit, so that makes this recollection a very good one to run on Nanami, more so if you're looking to use him in the support route, which I think a lot of people are going to be looking to use him in. He's like a really good support attacker. He does both things at the same time, which is nice. Next up, we have I See Then Die. This is going to be a free-to-play recollection. Not in the game as of yet for global, I believe, but what it's going to do is it increases own taijutsu and jujutsu damage by 40% for 1 turn, so that's like the highest increase for both types. That's an 80% increase roughly, and it's free to play. However, it is only for 1 turn, and then also if cursed energy is above 50, it increases your damage by an additional 20%, so that's like 100% boost in damage. That's a very good recollection to have, and it's going to be a completely free to play recollection, so be on the lookout for that one. And then next, all the rest of these are going to be gacha ones, but a lot of these are SR ones that are easily obtainable besides this one. So Malevolent Shrine increases own damage dealt by 60% for 1 turn. I do think this is the better option out of all your SR options. At the start of a wave, increases enemy damage received by 30% for 2 turns as well. This is probably your best somewhat free to play, right? It's a gacha memory, but most people have this. This is going to be your best free to play SR recollection to potentially put on Nanami. You could also put I Bought Local Souvenirs, increases both taijutsu and jujutsu damage by 33%. When ult gauge is full, increases by an additional 15% for taijutsu and jujutsu damage. Like, it's decent damage overall, but it's only for like, I believe it's 1 turn on this or 2 turns. It's not the same amount of 3 turns is always going to be better here, and an extra 20% damage as opposed to an extra 15% damage, and your ult gauge has to be full. Like, it's an okay recollection. It's just not as good as the ones up above, so that's why it's kind of down here. These other ones you could all run, they're all going to do similar things, okay? Notice the first effect on almost every single one of these. Increases own jujutsu damage by 60%, by 60%, by 60%, and this one's by 30%, okay? But these 3 are all 60% for 1 turn, 1 time. And then the second effect is the main thing that differs between these 3. So this one restores cursed energy by 10 when defeating an opponent. That could be really good for Nanami, right? Being able to spam his skill 3. And then for this one, at the start of a wave, decreases enemies damage dealt by 20% for 2 turns. Could help with survivability if you need it in a particular stage. I think this one's not going to be super useful out of the 3 here. And then A Girl Called Nobara Kugasaki recollection, if HP is below 50%, gains 30% crit rate for 1 turn once per battle. I do think that will be helpful, giving Nanami extra crit rate. Could potentially allow him to do more damage. So that one's okay. But all of these only increase jujutsu damage, which isn't as good as increasing both taijutsu and jujutsu damage. So that's why I say these aren't necessarily nearly as good as the recollections up above. And then last but not least, we have the Knight of Jujutsu Sorcerers, increases jujutsu damage by 30% for 2 turns, decreases all allies damage received by 10%. This one's like the least likely that you should use, but if you have nothing else, you could use this right here because it does give you only 30% jujutsu damage, so it's not as good as the ones up above, but it does give it to you for 2 turns, and it also gives you permanent damage reduction on all allies by 10% from the start of the battle. So it's an okay recollection, probably not the one I would recommend running on him though, but those are all kind of your options there for Nanami. Any of those will work, and it kind of goes in order there of best to worst recollections to run on him. Now, as for skill enhancement priority and skill usage priority, for skill enhancement priority, you do want to upgrade his deadly first. That is going to be the one you want to do the most damage with, and then you want to upgrade his skill 3 second. His skill 3 is very important because, like I said, if you're using him right, you are just going to be spamming your skill 3 over and over again to get the debuffs on the enemy and also to do big damage. And then you do a skill 2 because the skill 2 does have 2 hits, so it does a decent amount of damage. It also has a higher damage multiplier than his skill 1. And then for skill usage priority, whenever you have your deadly up, you should be using your deadly, but more often than not, the main skill you're going to be using is your skill 3. Just spam your skill 3, and then if for some reason you don't have cursed energy, then you use your skill 2, and then if you literally have no cursed energy energy at all, then you obviously have to use your skill 1, but you should be using your skill 1 the least because it does the least amount of damage, it does the least to help your team, and it's just not a super useful skill. So priority number 1 for skill usage, deadly. Priority number 2 is going to be your skill 3, but really your skill 3 is like your priority number 1 because you're going to be using it more often than the others. And last but not least, we have the resources that you're going to be looking for. These are the 2 resources that you want to farm out. So if you haven't been farming these out, you need to get the silver, the bronze, the gold, all the versions of these resources that you can to be able to get Nanami to a max grade 10, which once again is the max grade right now on global. And that is it for the Nanami character guide. Hopefully this helps you guys out. Hopefully you guys now know which recollections to run on him and what teams you might want to try him out on. And if you guys did enjoy the video, please consider going down there, hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button, and thank you guys so much for watching and supporting the channel. Peace.